up. A combined 90 points, more than 1,000 total yards. And the Bills making a statement in the Motor City. Remember, these same Bills come out with the Rams in a loss for 86 total points just last week. Josh Allen.
Oh, that's easy.
Continuing to roll on the ground. His second rushing touchdown of the day. 5 rushing scores over the last 2 games. That's the most for a quarterback in a 2-game span since 1950. He can also throw it a little bit.
Oh.
Queel Proud. Queel. Ty Johnson. Cool whip. 362 yards for Allen passing. 93.16 fantasy points over the last 2 games. That's ridiculous. James Cook can also run it. He's in. Bills are up 21-7. And they made the Lions one-dimensional. They had to become a passing team. But if you have to become a passing team, it's good to go deep in the old playbook. With Ben Johnson calling the plays and Jared Goff executing them. Check out Dan Skipper. He's eligible before the play. Slow motion for me. He's in. It was actually game speed.
The video was not doctored.
He's just
it was not slowed.
Bigger than your average child.
Uh-huh.
He's a growing lad. 38 of 59 passing was Jared Goff. James Cook, though, in the third quarter. This is 41.
Oh,
this is 41 yards south. He was almost brought down by his hair. Ooh. 105 total rushing yards. Third rushing score of 40 or more yards this season. Most by a Bills player since 1976. Gary, don't ask me who that was in 1976.
Wasn't gonna.
No, it's Jared Goff, meanwhile. To Amon-Ra St. Brown. 14 grabs, matches a franchise single-game record. 193 yards in that score. The Lions make it a 2-touchdown deficit. 12 minutes to go in the fourth. 12 minutes to go in the fourth. It's an onside kick. And Mac Hollins is like, I will take this. Tips it to himself, and we are inside the 5-yard line. Buffalo, great scoring position, and they would pay it off. It's Allen to Ray Davis. 4 total touchdowns for Allen, 2 by air, 2 by ground. Buffalo, 48-42. It's the 3rd time in franchise history they've had back-to-back 40-point games. Josh Allen looking more and more like the MVP of the league with each passing week. Over his last 3 games, Josh Allen has 13 total touchdowns. That is more as one human being than any team in the league over that span. He also leads the NFL in yards per dropback and QBR while committing exactly 0 turnovers. He is now a heavy favorite to win his first NFL MVP over at ESPN Bet.
Josh Allen can hand out samples at Costco because everybody can get some. As Rex Ryan and Teddy Bruschi join the program, Rex, Josh Allen just continues to get everybody involved. Sunday it was thrown to running back Ty Johnson for 114 yards. How did this game plan by Buffalo outsmart Detroit?
Oh, it was fantastic. They took advantage of a matchup they had. And look, Detroit's been decimated with injuries. Unfortunately, they're down to their 5th-string linebacker here, and they just picked on him over and over and over. And whether it was Quan Alexander or that Turner kid, these kids aren't there. Unfortunately, they needed 2 Jack Campbells, but they only have 1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were totally exposed, and it was just a great thing. It took, Buffalo game planning-wise, did an absolutely amazing job here. They saw the matchup and said, you know what, this is to our advantage. And then obviously Josh was able to hit it downfield, several wheel routes, and that really just put Detroit on their heels. And you can almost feel like the lack of confidence in that unit. And to their credit, win right there with Sean McDermott and that Buffalo Bills staff.
Yeah, when Josh Allen and that offense gets going, you get a lead, and that's when Buffalo's defense plays best because you turn Detroit into a drop-back passing game, and all of a sudden Ed Oliver can just go off. And I thought the Detroit offensive line would be formidable against this front of Buffalo, but Ed Oliver absolutely dominated. 9 to 10 pressures, getting to Goff. They couldn't block him. Absolutely destroyed Frank Ragnow, one of the toughest guys in the league. I mean, it's an Ed Oliver show that I couldn't believe. Also, Christian Benford, the cornerback, forcing Amon-Ra to fumble late in the game. These types of players, we talked about it on Countdown. Steal a possession. How can you do that against Detroit? Because this was going to be a high-scoring game. Players like Benford, players like Oliver, Milano recovering the fumble. This is when Buffalo's defense plays best. Do they allow a lot of points? Yes, but they know they've got the best kid on the planet that's going to score points, so they're going to have a lead, take the football away. That's what Buffalo did.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're dangerous because you mentioned how they get takeaways. That's what they do. Yeah, they bend and all that type of stuff, but they do get possessions back, and that's what you need. You get with this guy over here, Josh Allen, you get him a couple extra possessions, game, set, match.
They outrushed one of the best rushing teams in football, the Lions, by 4 times. They had 197 rushing yards, more than 4 times as many as Detroit had as.
Just once. I mean, it was up and down the field at will. And so in order to change the math, because you're trailing, you got to do something. You got to find a way to steal a possession. If your defense can't get a takeaway, then it made sense to go for the onside kick. Remember, you lost 3 key contributors on the defensive side of the ball maybe for the season, right? Alim McNeil, all-world defensive tackle, might be done. Khalil Dorsey, another member of that secondary, might be done. Carlton Davis might be done. So when you start factoring in all of those different cluster injuries, I can understand why Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell would want to get aggressive in terms of the overall game management. Go for the onside kick earlier in the fourth quarter. That way you give your team more runway to overcome it if the attempt isn't successful, and that's exactly what happened. If you want to criticize Dan Campbell's game management, I would criticize him for not using those timeouts earlier on that final drive because you knew the game was going to come down to another onside kick, so maybe saving a little more time. They came really close to recovering the onside kick at the end of the game, but even if they did, they only would have had about 10 seconds on the clock. So if you want to criticize them from a game management standpoint, I would criticize that. I am not critical of the onside kick. I like the aggressive call, and that's who Dan Campbell has been as a head coach all season long.
Your reasoning obviously makes a lot of sense. Here's my counter to that, though. The new rules. If it was a surprise onside kick and you did not have to tip off the other team, you didn't have to tell them you were doing that, a la the Saints in the Super Bowl with Sean Payton years ago. All right, I get that. And I get the defense was depleted. They let up a ton of points. The Bills score 40-plus points like every week now. And I get your reasoning of like, hey, you know, there's time to make up for it. I totally understand that part of it. I just have a tough time looking at this and thinking at some point Dan Campbell is going to shoot himself in the foot with some of these risky moves that are too risky. I get staying true to yourself. Some of these are too much, in my opinion, and yesterday was too much.
So I took a screenshot of this on the plane yesterday, this graphic that CBS put up during the game, because it very much exemplifies Dan Campbell and his aggressive nature when it comes to play calling. So since 2021, since he became the coach, 140 attempts on 4th down, 15 touchdowns on 4th down, and 12 fake punt attempts, almost in the NFL. This is who Dan Campbell is. We know that he's always going to go for it. We know that he's aggressive when it comes to his play calling. And most times the Detroit Lions have the talent to execute. But when it doesn't happen, that's when we shine a light on it, just like it happened in the playoffs last year that ended the Lions season. And you do wonder if, for all the times that it works and for all the times that his aggressive nature, which is the personality of the team, which is part of the culture of the Detroit Lions, if that's ultimately going to be something that comes to bite them in the end, just like it did last year.
CC, that doesn't scare you at all? But like, there's a level of aggression and then too aggressive?
I don't think yesterday was too aggressive. I completely disagree with you all. They had to find a way to get a stop, and their defense couldn't do it. So if your defense can't do it and your offensive job is to score points, then the only way you're going to steal possessions is on special teams. And that's what they tried. And guess what? It were 2 pretty good onside kick attempts. One went to the corner. Now, Matt Collins does a tremendous job at being able to tip it to himself, but you got the high bounce when you tried to do that onside kick earlier in the fourth quarter. Then you went to the middle, and Taron Johnson did bobble the ball before he eventually landed on it, but you almost came up with that one. So I guess I look at it from the standpoint of the Lions being able to give themselves as many cracks at it in terms of being able to come up with that consequential takeaway, that consequential extra possession that could have meant the difference in the game, because it was clear that both defenses weren't going to stop the opposing offenses. So I don't criticize Dan Campbell. He's playing the cards he was dealt. His defense took some more body blows yesterday with Alim McNeil getting hurt and with Carlton Davis getting hurt. You're talking about 2 of your top 4 starters on the defensive side of the ball coming into this season. So I don't know what you expect Dan Campbell to do under the circumstances.
We're on Sportsmanlike here on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance. All right, we heard there's more on that, obviously, to do, and I'm sure Dan Campbell is going to speak about it, and the Lions will speak about it as the week progresses. Their loss after that huge winning streak to the Buffalo Bills, and there's a Buffalo side of it, which we will get to as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the one thing I will say, Buffalo has a streak of 8 straight games where they're scoring north of 30 points. And Josh Allen has 10 total touchdowns and no turnovers in the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
Like, well, I did. He's the MVP of the league. Going away.
He's playing out of his mind.
Going away. What do you want Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn to do under those circumstances? I don't know.